Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this week's edition of Métis Coffee Talk, or this month's edition for this Thursday, September 28th. My name's Keith Henry. I'm the president of the BC Métis Federation, coming to you live from our office in Vancouver, British Columbia. What a great evening to be with all of us, as fall seems to be setting in a little bit here in Vancouver. It's a little cooler today, but I'm happy to be with you this evening. I want to welcome our Vice President, Mr. Rene Therrien. I see, Rene, you're there. It looks like you're in the Terrace Alps behind you.
How do you like my mountain behind?
Well, you got a lot of climbing to do there. Lots of climbing.
Glad to be here.
Yeah, it's great. It looks great, and really appreciate having you live on the show. I think you have some backup there with Sean somewhere in the background. Oh, there. Oh, he just showed up on the mountain. There he is. Evening, Sean. How are you?
Good. Ready to go for the mountain.
Okay, yeah. Well, you look like a mountain climber. Rene needs to grow a beard like you.
Look like a mountain man, eh?
Yeah, exactly. Well, Rene, we've had a really exciting 12th annual general meeting. I think we're all sort of still feeling a little sluggish coming back after a very busy weekend up in Prince George. I know I'll talk about that primarily through the show, but you did a lot of culture entertainment there. Why don't you start us off with your first tune for the show today?
Okay, I'll play one of my first tune that I've learned years ago. It's called Turkey in the Straw.
Okay. Thanks, Rene. You know, Rene, sadly, it's not picking very much of your volume up. It was kind of coming in and out. So I know we're going to try and fix those technical challenges while we're talking. I know Craig's going to work on the back end and see if we can sort that out. I wish I could have heard. I only heard part of it, but you look like you're having fun with it anyways.
Oh, that's too bad. I hope it gets fixed a bit.
Yeah, just when it's like, remember the issue we had before, it was kind of cutting in and out, and I know it's
Right.
caused by sometimes other filters, but we'll
Right.
do what we can. We'll see if we can sort it out for the next piece. But you know, Rene, why don't as they say, the show must go on. So, you know, Rene, we just came back from a very important 12th annual general meeting. I know that obviously we know there was a lot of work done this past weekend in Prince George. You know, what's your initial reaction to the annual general meeting, and what was your sort of thoughts? I'll talk specifically with some of the decisions that were made, but would love to get your thoughts on what you saw coming out of the annual general meeting.
You know, I thought it was great. The presenter was excellent. You know, Pierre Clermont, the community did well to host it. And the people that I talked to, they were all tickled actually on the progress that we have made. And of course, you know, I couldn't believe the young jiggers, how active and how good they were with the teacher. Bev Lambert did a great job there.
Yeah, it's without a doubt. I mean, I'll just throw up some of the images. I won't get too far into this because I want to actually spend a little bit of time on some of the specific topics. But you know, I put on the screen here. I'm sure you can see the screen beside you on your screen. But I just as everyone saw, we had new hats, so that was kind of the fun stuff. So I want to thank our board. There's a number of our board members. I noticed you with a hat on. It looks like it's barely sitting on the top of your head, but looks good though, Rene, on there. So it was nice to that. But our friend Lyle Attender was there. Obviously, he was really happy to see the work being done on advancing the Section 35 declaration. And I will talk about that a little bit on the show today. And I want to thank Lyle and his family for being there. And it just felt like it was a lot of fun. I just some pictures, we had some different dancing going on and different folks there. It just was a really, I thought, this is just a small snapshot, but we had such a great time with the kids and the families. And you talked about some of the young kids that were jigging, and I just wanted to, I am going to show a little bit of that, because I think it was great when we saw these kids dancing. It kind of puts it all in the perspective about how important the work we're doing for the future is, right, with all of our kids, right? And so I'm going to just I was just going to show a small clip of that. Actually, maybe I'm not. I've got to figure out where I can find it here now. That didn't make sense, so we'll go back here. Okay, well, for some reason now it's not doesn't want to come up for me. Oh yes, there it is. Of course, the second sorry, I'm having there's elves and the technical glitches here too. So let's see if this works now. Here we go. Well, I could watch that, for quite some time, but it just gives you a sampling. Like, we had some young Métis jiggers. We saw Bev Lambert, who most of us know, it's a performer across British Columbia, and shares a lot about Métis culture. And she was leading, and she had some dancers up from Prince George. And what was nice is these are some of our members. Some of those were other just Métis people that were just sort of, in the community there in Prince George, but they were so proud to see their kids, and the kids were so proud to be jigging. I for me think that makes the work we do invaluable. And I don't know, I saw, obviously we could hear your Métis fiddle music in the background there with your band. The gentleman playing the guitar, what was his name again, Renee?
His name is John Haru. I'd like to thank him. He was excellent. And even Ray Forget on the drum there, they really were good. Actually, they did well behind.
Yeah, it was most definitely here now I'm trying to minimize something, but yeah, it was definitely it was a lot of camaraderie there. That's what I felt about it. Like, it was such a sense of family. I don't know how else to say it other than I just thought it was a really impressive time, and on that note, having a good atmosphere where it's surrounded by culture first, and then we get to the business, is so important, right? And I think that's really what makes the BC Métis Federation, why we've come so far in the last number of years. It's always been rooted in culture, right? And when I think about that having that ability for yourself as a leader, and myself and all of our board of directors, it does make a difference, right? And I see there are people online here right now watching, and I do really appreciate if they do have questions. But I want to, we did release a press release this week about sort of, it was a very successful. A lot of our members, some of them are newer, some have been around the organization, but I do, like yourself, want to thank Pierre Lamond out of Prince George, their president, Sean Bordelon, and their board members. And there was just a lot of people locally that attended. And I as a 12th annual general meeting, I know, Renee, you've been at the beginning when we helped build this organization, just about 13 years ago now. You're right, it has come a long ways, right? And I think that we should all be very proud of that. What was the highlight for you that day, though? Like, there was a lot of highlights for me, but what was your highlight?
Well, I think all the information that came out, and of course, in the culture part of it, I think the kids Jiggin and Bev there, and to me, I think people dancing, everybody had a good time, and it looked like it. So I don't know. To me, I think that's the culture part was really excellent for me.
Yeah, I thought it was great that both yourself and then Elizabeth Pierce, obviously as one of our provincial leaders now and from Terrace as an elder, but you guys provided the prayer in Michif, and it's just adding more Michif language to everything we're doing. I think that sends the right message to people, right? And I think that came throughout the event. Now, I do want to show people, we have posted now the draft minutes today, and they'll be going out officially sort of by email tomorrow. But if you do want to look at the business of the organization, because Renee, you brought it up a few times, we did get a lot of specific things done, and I won't go through the minutia of this, but I will highlight a few things, right? And we did specifically, I think most people would have seen that we had quite a robust annual report for 2022, 2023. We did spend a lot of time on the financials, for example, and we showed people in a very transparent way how we've been growing the organization over the last 13 years. And this last year was our biggest year ever in terms of financial investments and ability to deliver programs, right? Where, we had significant growth this last year, and this current year we're growing again. And that's enabled us to invest in communities. And I think helping people understand the business plan behind how we actually do that with our partner communities and members, and how we're trying to work to be our own boss. Like, we're doing a lot of economic development to advance. So I think having people realize that, yes, it isn't just about money to be involved in the Métis organization. It's actually about culture and the Michif language and the investments we make with partner communities. We're really proud of. And so I think that hopefully people get a sense of that. If you're watching from the sidelines and you see that was definitely very important for us. And of course, our auditors, KPMG, gave us another clean audit, and we had a small surplus again in the last year. And this year we're on track to have another small surplus. So, the organization is a nonprofit as well, and a representative organization for roughly 6,000 Métis people in BC. We've certainly come a long ways in the last few years. I won't go into the annual report at all. We've showed it on here before, but as you could see, we did a number of these resolutions were passed. I think the time we spent on the current year as well was really important, Renee, and I think you talked about it, and we help people understand. We just introduced recently a scholarship fund program. We've had emergency relief when the fires were happening last month. The Federation had roughly about 100 families that were in the sort of the really emergency fire zone areas in the Okanagan and in the Lake County, and in those areas. We talked about at the AGM how we reached out to help those families. We clarified how much money we supported for emergency relief, and all of this was done on our own. No government paid for that. Us as a Métis government provided a little bit of financial relief, not a lot, but because we don't have deep pockets. But we provided that support. So the New Year program and what we call the key performance indicators was really important. And we fully disclosed the financial report. If anyone goes back and watches the AGM, they can see where everything is being invested. And it's very transparent. So I won't go through much more. I think the big thing was that, to your point, in the minutes, you'll see a bit of updates on the legal work, and I'll talk about the legal Section 35 declaration work very shortly. Hopefully we're going to have a song from you in a minute or two after this. Anyways, we did speak to these items specifically at great length at the AGM. And to your point, Renee, yeah, we've come a long ways. In the afternoon, we gave a lot of updates on new programs like the Pacific Northwest research. I think that was very well received by the members in attendance. The Spark Métis program, the employment and training support program for younger Indigenous individuals, that's currently going on at Fort St. John, and we had the first cohort in Prince George. On and on and on. Coastal water protectors. We have a big conference coming up in Langley, October 21st, and I encourage people that if they're interested to look to our website and check out the Coastal Water Protector program. There's an important conservation style program for water protection that we're hosting in Langley. To the work you're doing at the Michif language that you've brought as a leader to the forefront, cultural investments for the communities, on and on and on. So a lot going on. And I guess I just want to throw one more comment in here. The Métis housing, we've got a specific survey we're doing now about housing challenges or not for our members. So we're just really trying to analyze these things. So these are all initiatives and programs. And the point being that if you want to look at the minutes, they're posted already in our board minutes section here. And I just want to say how much we appreciate everyone that attended in person, everyone that watched. We had a lot of members watch live online. They didn't vote. So we've got to figure, like, they were there, they were eligible voters, but they didn't cast votes. So we have to still sort the virtual voting options. It's hard as a provincial organization, but we'll continue to try and find ways to help people feel they can vote. I think there's some confusion there. But it was, I think I would qualify this as definitely our most successful AGM, Renee. And I don't know if you would agree with that statement or not.
I think I would, we had a few so far, but I think this one was one of the better ones that I attended.
Right. Well, I want to talk a little bit after, but let's try a song. And if the volume isn't coming through, we'll have to figure out what we're gonna do. But let's give it a shot and see if we can do another Métis song, okay?
Okay. Walking Uptown.
Okay.
Yeah, Renee, it's Renee? Yeah. Sorry, everyone. I know Renee can't these, but it's not really working very well. We'll have to figure out a way to fix this. We had the same issue last show, and I guess we haven't sorted it out, Renee. It's not going to work tonight.
Oh,
Yeah, it's just we know we can hear you playing, and or I can see you playing, but we can't. It just keeps cutting out, and yeah, unfortunately, it's not going to work. So I know Sean and Renee, maybe you guys can sing.
next time.
But you know what, Renee, that's okay. These things happen, and we'll keep sorting that out, and we'll just keep working on it for next time.
Yeah.
I do want to switch us though. I know it's I do want to yeah, no, someone says the bandwidth at the office. I don't think that's it. No, it's actually the volumes and the way the microphone works. And sometimes, like, there's a setting, I think, that we kind of ran into this a few months ago, and I just think that we'll have to continue to sort out that. And I'm not a speaker person, so, but I know that it's not the bandwidth, it's actually the microphone settings and stuff like that pick it up. So, but we'll sort it out, and Renee, we'll just we'll but I appreciate everyone joining in on the conversation online and giving some solutions. But I do want to switch this because I want to make sure that the members are aware. One thing that was definitely talked about at the AGM, just switching now to the next item, a big decision that was made this last week, was we've now decided to proceed with our Section 35 declaration. And I think most people that were at the AGM will have seen the work that we've done to try and get the Section 35 declaration work. So what I just want to spend a few moments on, and Renee, I will talk to you a little bit about this, but the Section 35 declaration was filed with the Supreme Court of BC last week, right on last Friday, 24 hours essentially before the start of the annual general meeting. We had wanted to file the declaration sometime before. And what I'm here to say to our members and our friends and partners that are watching tonight, this is not about a land claim fight. This is about Canada, the government of Canada, cannot tell Métis people that there's only one Métis government that represents us in British Columbia. Now, this might not be true in other provinces where there's established organizations, but we know there's been a longstanding challenge with the Métis Nation, British Columbia, and we're not here to be negative towards them. But we feel that we have the right to our government the way we choose as Métis people in this province. And that's the Métis Nation BC simply isn't our government, and nor will. So we're worried about we see, and I'll talk about this, there's Bill C-53 that First Nations continue to battle against. I will show you a bit more of that, but This case is specifically about our efforts to seek a declaration at the Supreme Court recognizing the role of BC Métis Federation as the legitimate governing body of Section 35 Métis people in the province. Essentially, that's what this is meant to do. Now, of course, there'll be other steps required after this, but that is step one. And it's the most, based on the legal advice we had sought and we had presented last year, we've been working on this really aggressively for about the last 15 months, was basically to go down, this is the most effective way to go to the courts and seek this sort of relief. So we filed a notice of civil claim. You can see its date stamped in the registry, September 22nd. It's right on your screen at home. And we did share this at the AGM. And I won't go into great detail on this other than to take you to what we're filing and what we're seeking as relief. So we have 4 plaintiffs that have joined us: Lyle Latender, Kyle Latender, and I won't go through all the names, but the plaintiffs, sorry, they're at the top here, Elaine Cronus, and of course, Karen Prowse. So we've got quite a representation of what we feel is Howley style community with Kelly Lake, of course, and our friends from Kelly Lake. Karen Prowse has got a long-standing family up in the Fort Nelson area, and we believe there's a rich history of prior to Crown control of that area with Métis families. And Elaine is a very deeply rooted family with Pacific Northwest roots. And so these are the things that we felt was complementary to what we were trying to get across to seek this declaration. Now, I won't go through all the case. We're not going to file this online. I won't go through the specific information of the individuals. But what I will share with you is what we're seeking around is the Crown denial, deprivation, and discrimination portions of this. Now, I'll just paraphrase these. There's 3 statements we make. We're saying that the Crown has had a long and tenuous relationship with the Métis in what is now called British Columbia. We believe the discriminatory conduct against us in BC continues into the present day. We also say that the Crown has directly and indirectly discriminated against the Federation and our members, causing demonstrable harm to both. And then we say the Crown's direct and indirect discriminatory practice against the Federation and its members are particularized below. And so we then go in the claim to talk about the direct and indirect discrimination. And these aren't fun topics. And trust me, we as leaders thought very carefully about this before we took this legal action forward. We certainly tried to reach out to the provincial and federal governments to head off things, but we cannot sit and wait for another 10 years while we see things developing so quickly with Métis government. So we talk about the Crown's recognition of the Métis Nation, British Columbia, and we talk about the preferred role. Not always, but it's like, we said at the AGM, and I'll say it here on the show, we seem to have a schizophrenic relationship with the federal and provincial governments, and some departments work with us, some don't. But we need a consistent application of that. We represent our BC Métis Federation members, our partner communities. We have to protect their legal rights, and that's what we are going to do. And so we just lay that out in terms of the direct. So we talk about the preferred approach by the federal government to the MNC, and as MNBC is one of the governing members, talk about the work of the Canada Métis Nation Accord, et cetera. And I won't get into the rest of it. And then what we do is we particularize the departments. So we talk about Heritage Canada language funding, and there's a very specific set of issues that have happened where the government of Canada now is, of course, only working with the Métis National Council and its governing members for Michif language. We feel that's highly inappropriate, and we feel we shouldn't. And we've been running Michif language programs for years before this change in direction recently this year. So this is one example, and I won't get into all of it other than to say that we feel very passionately about protecting the language of our members, which needs to be supported in this filing. The second example we give in this is the Indigenous Skills and Employment and Training Program, the ISET program. We have a tremendous number of young people, young members that are Métis, that are being denied access to tuition, living allowance, all these different programs that were supposed to help all Métis because of the preferred approach through Métis Nation BC. Up until 2 years ago, we did have full access. Our members had access to those programs. And then MNBC has politicized this by saying you can't access their programs unless you're an MNBC citizen. Well, that's their prerogative, but we're saying to the government, well, if that's the case, then there should be resources for our members to access. And that, so we feel very strongly about that. That's another example. Child welfare is the third example. And the Crown, and this is around jurisdiction, or there was federal legislation created a number of years ago now about First Nations, Métis, and Inuit jurisdiction over childcare. We know this remains a very hotly contested issue across British Columbia, for Métis Nation BC, I might add as well. But we're saying that the Crown's refusal to recognize Métis families as Section 35 people in British Columbia, which is the official position of the Federal Department of Indigenous Services Canada here in British Columbia, that it's actually, we are not able to advance. Neither is MNBC, I might add, but that is a specific consequence of that indirect or that direct lack of recognition. So then there's other indirect. So those are three examples. There could have been more, but we've really identified those as the most pressing issues. And then there's others in what we call indirect. One is Inspire. Inspire is a well-known organization that provides many student scholarships, gets a lot of money from corporate Canada, but they themselves refuse to recognize BC Métis Federation members. And we think that is unconscionable by that agency. We've had many members feel like they have to leave us to go get funding for this program. And we think that we need to bring that to the courts and bring that into the public conversation. So that's one example, and we want to make sure that all of our members have full access to you can see it's Building Brighter Future bursary scholarships and awards program. We just want our members to have access. They should not be getting denied access. So we've notified them that they're included in this case as well now. So we just identified it, we've put it out, and that's one thing. That's an indirect. So what we say in the next section is we also question the freedom of association under the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. And so we point out the obvious around what does it actually mean that for the government to infringe on us and our members on the right to freedom of association by imposing state enforced isolation and alternatively compelled association. So we feel that the Federation and our membership, we want to address this in the courts and seek a declaration that stops the removal of our agency, of our organization, of our building of our community. And we want members to feel they can freely be with us and not have to feel like there's going to be consequences of not getting access to federally funded programs and services. So the relief sought, there's 4 specific areas. We want a declaration that the Federation represents Métis members situated throughout BC and have an ancestral root in British Columbia, many of which do here. The Pacific Northwest research we showed at the AGM showed that very clearly. Secondly, that the Crown infringed upon us and our members' right to a freedom of association, guaranteed under Section 2D of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. Going on to the second major area, that we want a mandatory order requiring the Crown to recognize and acknowledge the BCMF as a legitimate representative of Métis members. I mean, they can't say we're not. We've been around for 12, 13 years. We've got roughly 6,000 people, members and through our partner communities working with us. We're going to ask for costs of this action, and we want other such further and other relief as this honorable court may deem just. So we've pointed out the legal basis, and I won't go through all that. In essence, that outlines the case. We've got areas. Now, I know there's many First Nations that are saying we're trying to take their land, we're trying to this. This has nothing to do with that. It's to start with addressing the absolute, what we feel is discriminating policies of certain federal departments and also the provincial government in this work. As everyone's talking about reconciliation, you can't force people to simply be part of one organization or another. MNBC has no law. There's no federal legislation that says that they're the Métis government for the Métis people of BC, but they're acting that way. And the government's acting that way. And they're acting like that's the only way. And then we're going to work our level best to make sure that we address this once and for all. We've tried to negotiate our way through that. And simply put, we pointed out the AGM that I think that we feel that's enough. And it's time for us to deal with it in another way. So, we know how important this is because, as many of you saw, we had a forum in July to address this and other sort of challenges we see happening. And we cannot stress to all of us as members how important this work is, because we know that sadly, we see some First Nations that still that, we've been disappointed, not all, but we continue to be disappointed about the response we're seeing across Canada, and how certain First Nation leaders and some grassroots First Nations in the country are just absolutely fighting when, even if there is federal legislation to support Métis governance. So there's been a lot of public debate. We brought it, as many, we had the forum, as I mentioned a bit ago, in July, at the end of July in Langley. And it was basically dealing with what we felt was, the racist and discriminatory comments from the Union of BC Indian Chiefs. So was the impetus at the time. And we told people in July that sadly, it looks like First Nations are the AFN had passed a resolution, the BC AFN had passed a resolution. All these resolutions are passing to fight Métis self-government legislation. And we feel that is unfortunate and really, truly sad at a time of reconciliation that we're dealing with this. Now, listen, we aren't big fans of other Métis governments, especially Métis Nation BC, but we recognize at the Federation that our leadership recognizes that we need federal legislation and governance and legal protection of our self-governments. And so however we get there is fine. We'd love to be in that at some point. But the truth is, it was nice to see certain pieces of federal legislation making their way through the legislative process. So we are seeing this now. And unfortunately, as we had presented to members of the Federation and some skeptical people in the crowd, we said First Nations will fight this, and people kind of have had the odd conversation saying, well, we're not sure if this is true. This is all surrounding when this bill came out. It was first introduced into the government of Canada, June 21st, National Indigenous Peoples Day. It was legislation to support not just Ontario, but it was 3 governments that were going to get recognized. It was around Métis Nation of Ontario, Métis Nation Saskatchewan, and Métis Nation Alberta. And it was all wrapped up into what was called Bill C-53, an act respecting the recognition of certain Métis governments in Alberta, Ontario, and Saskatchewan to give effect to treaties with those governments and to make consequential amendments to other acts. So it's really around recognizing their government role once and for all and making sure that, and whether we like these organizations or not, that's, I think personally, and there's debates about this amongst the Métis communities in those provinces in some cases, but I still think it's important for us to get that kind of recognition. I will always absolutely say it, even if I don't agree with their policies or agree with the way they run things, it's still important to get to that place where our governments are recognized in law, because we know when they're not, these governments can stop, can have all sorts of challenges, and it's just really a challenging time. Well, this last week, as this was unfolding, this hasn't been gone through all the political process. We now know that First Nations did in fact have their protest. They did carry on exactly as we said they would at AFN after the resolutions were passed with the various provincial and territorial AFN, Assembly of First Nation organizations, and the chiefs. Certain groups did rally in Ottawa and last week. So let's just look at some of the media coverage that was out from APTN last week.
Gears here a little bit. Carrie, First Nations across the country and the Manitoba Métis Federation were calling on the federal government to stop Bill C-53. This is legislation to recognize certain Métis governments. The issue here mainly seems to be stemming from the Métis Nation of Ontario. What are your thoughts on that?
I think they have some very valid concerns, and I think that they're not being listened to. There are issues that this legislation is going to create. There's an issue of land, there's an issue of identity, there's an issue of, just who is actually an Indigenous person. This whole idea of Métis identity, I'm not Métis myself, so I feel less informed to speak on it, but I find that there is so many people that are so quick to claim Métis identity without fully realizing who the Métis are. They are a distinct culture, they're distinct people, they have communities. And I spoke to a Maori person, and he said that anybody can be Maori, and it's a 50%. It's like, you can claim to be Maori, but who claims you? So there's that connection to community, that connection to land that I think that is being overlooked in this argument, and that's what the First Nations chiefs are bringing forth. There is a really larger issue, and their voices are not being heard, and it's scary to what. It's scary for me to see what can happen if this bill is passed and how it can be manipulated by people falsely claiming Indigenous identity.
Yeah. Egon, is there anything else that you're going to be looking for in the session of Parliament to come?
Well, this is a divide and conquer tactic. You can say what you will about the federal government and their commitment to Indigenous issues, but on this issue, this is really a problem. This is really a problem by not taking a stand on the issue of Métis identity. I mean, the Manitoba Métis Federation is very clear in that the Métis Nation comes from Manitoba, and there are Métis communities outside of Manitoba that were expelled or that left or that departed after the Manitoba Act and SCRIP and went across the prairies and in some parts of Ontario. But if the people, the very birthplace, the individuals that are today talking about Métis sovereignty, Métis identity, are saying that the people in Ontario are not Métis, the federal government, the provincial government, any government should not be stepping in and making agreements with individuals who are saying they're a Métis when the very people who birthed the Métis identity are saying they are not. And so what we're left with is a federal government making paternalistic decisions, determining who is and who is not, as Carrie points out, an Indigenous person. And that's just the same old colonial politics of the past. What we need is we need to recognize that this is First Nations land. And so First Nations need to be at the table. And so First Nations should be at least at the very minimum involved in the discussions around this bill. Never mind the fact that really there should be the Métis people, and we should be determining and making a decision on who are making decisions for the Métis. And at the moment, there's a split between the Métis National Council and the Manitoba Métis Federation that has created a lot of problems. And so I don't think anything should be decided till that's sorted out onto itself. Okay,
all good points. Thanks, Nigan. And thanks, Carrie. Thanks for joining us today. We'll have to leave it there, and have a good day.
Yeah, Miigwech, thanks.
So, I mean, I think the video speaks for itself, and while I understand some of the concerns around Métis identity, I also question, there's many First Nation communities that also are challenged with their membership processes. Not everything's run by Ottawa anymore or INAC. There are membership codes in various 600 plus First Nation communities and so forth. But I don't understand, I see the media now, and the APTN obviously is very deeply connected with many Indigenous communities. But the problem I have, there wasn't a Métis person on that panel. There wasn't someone talking about this, because there's a lot of fear tactics, and there was obviously a rally, and there is this perception that somehow Métis rights are a threat to First Nation rights. And I think we have to be really careful in that narrative, and we have to be really aware that this is not a good way for us to advance Métis issues in this country, because if we let that be the narrative about how we should advance Métis rights, I think there's a big challenge for us. And I just have to say, it was brought up on the video, and we showed this at the AGM. I just think it's absolutely, I have to say this as carefully as I can. I really don't understand the Manitoba Métis Federation leadership around rallying support to oppose Bill C-53, and you can hear it in the narrative from those media people. They've all bought into the notion it's okay, so only if you're from Red River. But there's more Métis communities than just Red River, and you even heard her from that one, he's Nigan. He's saying, oh, there's only the Métis there, and there was only a couple of communities that after they dispersed after coming out of. That wasn't the case. We are children of the fur trade. There's a rich history of mixed blood, separate and distinct communities that formed in many parts of the country concurrently as the events of Red River unfolded in 1869-70, and of course in Batoche in 1885. I mean, yes, there's provincial legislation in Manitoba that did commit 1.4 million acres of land, and the scrip system was born, et cetera, et cetera. But to believe that that's the only way you can be Métis, well then, I don't understand how you would connect Métis settlements that had no physical connection to that area historically. Like, I mean, I just, it loses, that argument doesn't make sense. That tells me that these particular First Nation people that are scared don't understand the history of the Métis people in this country. And I think that's up to us to address that. And I'm very passionate about this because I just think MMF, it's in their political interest to spin a narrative, to have the Canadian. So as long as they're okay and at the expense of everyone else that's Métis outside of Red River, if you will, it's okay. And to be transparent with everyone watching tonight, my family has script connections in St. Boniface. So I technically am a Red River person, but they're not my government. They don't get to decide for me. We are representing our communities in a contemporary way as effectively as we can out here in British Columbia. And what I will say is the history has shown me through our research that there is Pacific Northwest mixed blood people. So we need to get at the truth of the history and the genealogical evolution of our families, what we call our kinship networks, all of these ways of connecting. And we shouldn't be afraid to stand up for that. And I just going to say this is going to continue to plague us. I don't know what's going to happen with Bill C-53. None of us know right now, but it's very clear, that they're talking about the divide and conquer mentality out here as First Nation. Well, the First Nations are also dividing and conquering Métis interests all the time and hiding behind the fact of MMF. And so using MMF as their justification to say, well, look, even they're in their own community, and until they sort it out with Métis National Council, we shouldn't advance. Well, excuse me for being a little bit tongue-in-cheek about this, but a lot of First Nation communities don't support the Assembly of First Nations. There's many that have withdrawn completely. That doesn't mean they don't move forward with First Nation title and rights. That's up to the individual communities to work on that. So I'm very passionate about this, and I think it's a cop-out for society and governments to say, well, because we don't know, you haven't proven it enough. Well, we are doing that. That's exactly what our Métis organizations are doing that. We don't just let anybody in. The Federation has a very in-depth genealogical process. Like, there's no different. We don't want Métis people that aren't legitimately validated either. Like, I mean, there's this false narrative that we're going to come and take First Nation resources, and we're not saying we don't want to honor protocol. We've made that point many times. Many Métis organizations have tried to reach out to First Nations for years, and they ignore it. So we need to advance at some point. We can't sit and wait till someone decides it's okay that we can be there. Like, that's exactly how we feel. And we're like, for us, the Federation, we're certainly not going to back off that. And I understand some people can be concerned. Then let's sit down and have a conversation. You're not going to get anywhere in this day and age by falsely putting out false narratives on a continual basis, which is what we see at the Federation. And I see it in that APTN conversation, like, not even to have a Métis voice of dissension on that panel. Like, if you want to have a panel, let's have a conversation about it. I've always been disappointed with to be honest with you, the APTN coverage of Indigenous issues. It's always been Manitoba Métis Federation centric. It's never given any other views outside of that. Anyways, I'll get off my rant there, but it's just very disappointing to see that at a time of reconciliation that we're dealing with this kind of like anti-Métis sentiment still. And it's to the point I made at the beginning of this piece of the update tonight. We said this was going to unfold in July, and I know there was people in BC that were skeptical, and it did. It's unfolding. It's going to continue to unfold, and we need to continue. That's so just another reason why the Federation was so adamant about getting our declaration into the Supreme Court of BC, because there's a lot of political people trying to move on us. Renee, I kind of went on a bit of a long rant there, but your thoughts, feedback, your reaction to the video, listening to APTN.
Well, I think you brought a lot of good points. APTN, yeah, they should have had a Métis on the panel anyway to have their views, but we need to. We need to have the same right as other organizations. And I don't think we had any choice but to do what we're doing. So, yeah, it's unfortunate.
What's your reaction when you see, I know, Renee, you're a vice president, and I know you and I talk a lot, but what's your impression when you see things like Manitoba Métis Federation, they put out a statement supporting First Nations to stop Métis governments? Like, I just can't get over that Métis people aren't more outraged that the MMF, quite honestly. I hear people defending MMF, and I'm like, that's not fair. Like, that is just, like, if MMF, like, they broke away from the MNC because they didn't get their political way, they also have an obligation to sit down and quit throwing mud against the wall against everyone's registry and pretend they're holier than thou. But like, do you have any thoughts about that? Sorry, I'm very disappointed in Manitoba Métis Federation's public statements on C-53.
Yeah, I don't know the logic why they're taking that route. I was born in St. Boniface, so I'm Red River, but my kids weren't born up there. So now they're saying that they're not Métis. I'm not for it, definitely, and I don't know where BC short train is going with it. So, yeah, I don't know.
It doesn't.
comment much.
Well, talking about divide and conquer, like that's exactly what he's doing, because as he's doing this, and we know it's David Chartrand's the president and their supporters, right? And as they're saying publicly, they're trying to work with First Nations. They're trying to be the only Métis recognized government in the country. And then they're running around to all our provinces in Western Canada, and they're trying to create Red River citizens there. They're trying to get people to sign up. So they don't believe in the governments of those provinces and territories, but they want the people to join their organization because they somehow should be, back with the homeland. Well, I don't know. I just find it so, like, it's so politically motivated, and I hope people see it for what it is. And I don't know how they would ever provide support to any of us outside of, unless you're living there. I mean, their government, you can't even be elected on their government. Their whole democratic process is a questionable process. Like, you can't ever run for president. You have to be a area director, and you got to be this, and it's like, it's not a very democratic process, to say the least. But we don't talk about that, right? We just assume because we have someone screaming at the top of his lungs on the media that he's right. He's not right. And I would tell that to his face. I think it's ridiculous what's happening with the Manitoba Métis Federation and what's happening. Like, we have no problem with them advancing their needs for their citizens, but he doesn't represent me. And I can say, and I would say that anywhere. And I just think that it's getting to a point where, like, I thought at the beginning of all this, it was just some bad politics with him and the Métis Nation Ontario. But he's willing to jeopardize the advancement of Métis Nation Saskatchewan, Métis Nation Alberta, all to just win. And I just think that's wrong. I don't know, Renee, sir, I don't want to, I'm obviously very heated about this issue because I think it's disrespectful to many Métis people that have dedicated their lives in Saskatchewan and Alberta as well. Whether I agreed with them or not is irrelevant. Those institutions were built. I was there. I saw that growing up in those organizations, seeing that. So I don't understand how he can do this in the media, quite honestly.
Yeah, I don't know the direction the Manitoba has taken. I think they're wrong, but we'll have to see. I guess we had to do something, and we've done it, and hopefully things will turn around on soon. Actually, for all the other province.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I guess that's it'll be what it'll be, right? I mean, there's nothing more we can do about it, and we'll just have to let it unfold the way it does, for sure. So Renee, do we have any? I guess we can't fix the fiddle music tonight, hey?
I could try it again, but maybe not. I don't know.
I don't know. It's been one of those nights where we've got ghosts in the machine here. It's not working well. Renee, how are things up at Terrace with the Skeena River Métis Community Association? Speaking of government, how are you guys doing? What's happening with you this week?
It's doing well. I think we're having a get together on Sunday for Reconciliation Day, and then tomorrow I think I'm going up the Nass to do some cleaning my garden. I got to pick some potatoes, carrots, you name it, and I'm going to bring back to Terrace so I could give them away. I'm sure some people would appreciate some fresh potatoes. No, I think we're doing well. Our office, you should see our office change every day. There's so much stuff in our office now, we might have to move or get a bigger one.
Yeah.
But we're doing well, Keith. Definitely talking to Elizabeth and the board. Yeah, we're moving forward, and we've got a lot of plans for this coming year.
Well, that's great. I mean, I just think, I think that work that you guys are doing at the community level is just so important. And speaking of which, I know this weekend, I just want to do a shout out for our friends at the North Thompson Aboriginal Center. Their president, Cindy Wilgosh. I know they're having an event you brought it up. It's this obviously in a few days. It's Thursday, September 20th, but September 30 or the 30th is the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. And I just wanted to share some of the details. If you're in that Thompson Okanagan area, please check it out. It's the national. They're doing an event. Well, you can see the information here, but everything will shut down at 4. They're going to be there all day. It's at 11 till 4. You can see the doors open, displays information, music, videos, crafts, stories, food, and the location is here. But I just want to acknowledge our friends in, of course, Clearwater, BC, that they're hosting the National Truth and Reconciliation Day, Orange Shirt Day. So this Saturday, I don't know, Renee, do you have an orange shirt you're going to wear for in honor of residential school survivors, in honor of what's happened to our history? I always say this, a lot of people don't realize, but a lot of our families, Métis families, were deeply impacted by residential school as well, and I think that there isn't enough recognition that with no doubt First Nation families were deeply impacted, but a lot of Métis families were as well. And I just hope people don't forget that that we too had our culture deeply impacted as we were evolving in Canada as a country. But do you have any plans for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation for yourself?
I believe, well, we're meeting on Sunday, and then I believe we got orange shirts someplace here. We want to be, and I think we're just going to celebrate. My dad was residential school, and unfortunate, I don't know what happened there because he would never talk any about it. So, but anyway, I know he was there, and and there was more than one Métis definitely among the First Nation kids.
That's what I mean. Like, you brought up, I knew your dad had gone. We also have family that was there for day schools. Like, I just think there's so many of us that were also, like, our families were deep, like just our generation ahead of one of us, and we have people in our organization that attended residential school. Like, I just don't think people realize the deep Métis connection as well to that difficult history of as a country. But, hopefully these events will, help bring the awareness that it was First Nation and Métis people that were also impacted by residential schools. So I'm glad you guys are doing that. I just want to let people know as well, we will also have you'll be putting a little bit of a promoted piece out as well. But we created one image that we really are going to share for this Saturday as well. It's an image of oh, pardon me, I just of course lost the image here. It's an image that I'll be putting out, but I think it's orange shirt. We just want to, we're going to be over the next for next year. Our plan is to have T-shirts that also talk about the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation using the infinity symbol, which is, an iconic representation for all Métis communities in this country. And every child matters. And we say that including Métis children. Like, let's not forget that there is Métis families that were deeply impacted by residential school experiences. So, this Saturday, it's not a celebration. I keep saying that to people. I do a lot of work in Indigenous tourism. Please make sure that that you also acknowledge that there's Métis people and Métis families that were also impacted, and take that time on Saturday to commemorate it. Wear your orange shirt. If it's silent support, that's fine. Get a pin if you don't have a shirt, and wear it publicly. Let's help make sure Canadians know that that's part of the healing journey we need as a country for all Indigenous people. And and we'll get there, but we got to get there as Canadians sort of work their way through how they can support healing coming out of that. And that public gesture is one way. I'm on my way. I'm pretty excited. With my work, Renee, tomorrow's the BC Lions are playing Saskatchewan Roughriders, and they're doing a major, event as part of the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation. Although it's September 29th, they play tomorrow night. And so I will be attending that event as well. And we're going to be there promoting some specific Indigenous content, including Métis. So I'm very, very excited about that tomorrow. It's a very public way to continue to create the conversation. I think is the best we can do for many, many people in society today. So Renee, it's I know you and Sean. Sean's probably sitting back, feeling kind of not great that the guitar didn't work. But Sean, how was your week? I guess before we wrap up the show, I'm sorry it didn't work out tonight. I wish I could tell you it did, but How was, I guess, things for you? Are you doing anything for the National Day for Truth and Reconciliation this weekend?
I'll be here Sunday at the meeting and I always, when I talk to other people about it, I always say, you know, there's two parts here, truth and reconciliation. And first we need the truth. So it's important that the general population realize the truth of what happened to our Indigenous population during the colonial periods. And so that's the one thing I always emphasize. Let's get the truth out, and then we can work on reconciliation.
Yeah.
So the orange shirt day is very important, and I have two orange shirts, so I can choose. I can have a fresh one every day.
Well, I'm really glad to hear you say that, because I think part of that, when we talk about the truth, is to ensure that Métis are also recognized as impacted by residential school, because, you know, we were, and I can't stress that enough. Like I know countless families that had unfortunate experiences, you know, some were just in day schools and were in and out, and but you know, our families, many of them were impacted. So I'm just glad that, like you talking, reconciliation can't happen without truth. And truth is that half-breed, Métis, mixed blood, Bois Brûlés, whatever we were known as, whatever they decided to call us, we were there. Many of our families were there. And we also need to help our people. That was part of the whole colonial experience. And it is what it is. And it's up to us to continue to bring truth to that, and recognition that we can make it better for tomorrow and never let it happen again, right? So I just say, I'm glad you're there, Sean, helping out. Renee, any sort of closing comments you want to share before we end the show? I know it was a bit of a political one, because I did get on the declaration and the First Nation and the Manitoba stuff, but I just felt very passionate about speaking to those issues today. So, but anything you want to close with?
Well, I'm looking forward for this weekend, and with our board and all the people that's going to be attending, and we'll definitely play some fiddle. And it's too bad that the audio didn't work, but hopefully we'll have that fixed for next one.
Well, you got that right. You know what? I will show, you know, JJ released, you know, JJ's not here. He wasn't able to make the show. He's been off and on our shows this last while. So, but you know what? I wanted to show one of his songs. We have a song posted here, and I wanted to give people a short clip before we wind up the show. Just bear with me, Renee. We'll give people some video content here, if that's okay with you. All right.
Yes.
All right, let's give it one more shot here.
There are two types of people in this world. There's victims and victors.
Well, I thought I could get that so it would be working perfectly, but of course the gorillas, the monkeys in the system just will not work with me tonight. I cannot figure out. We've had a lot of technical challenges. I thought I could play a short song from our friend JJ, but you know what? It's not going to work. But I want to leave us with this photo. You know, I think to our board of directors, to our leaders that are helping, like yourself, Renee, and many others. You know, I just want to say thank you. You know, this group of people continues to be dedicated to helping advance the issues, the challenges of the Federation, all the things. This was a nice group photo we took right at the end. You know, our youth rep, Jordan on the far left, Elizabeth sitting flanking me on the left, my right, if you're facing the camera. On the other side was Cindy. And then, of course, the back row, we've got Earl on the far right with the beautiful hat there, and Jackie, our secretary, and of course, Renee right behind me is our vice president. And so, you know, with, of course, Roseanne and Louise on the other side. You know, this group of people really cares about Métis issues, cares about supporting partner communities, and really cares about helping our members in any way we can, which is why this board has been so effective in emergency response relief, COVID relief back in the day. So, you know, the road's a bit challenging right now, but I know that we're based in culture, and I know together we're going to continue to make it better. So I'm just wanted to say thank you to the board here publicly. They've done such a great job to never give up and to always act with integrity and just really try and do what we can to help where we can. There's only so much we can do. In terms of the declaration, we invite members, if you have questions or comments, please feel free to email me, k.henry@bcmétis.com. More than happy to discuss that with our members. We've now filed, shared with you tonight. And with that, I want to say thanks, Renee and Sean. I know the music didn't quite work out as what we wanted, but I just want to say good night to both of you, okay?
Okay, good night. Yeah.
Next
And
week.
thanks to you guys very much. And to everyone watching tonight, have a great night for this Thursday, September 28th, 2023. And we'll look forward to talking to you in October. Good night, everyone.
Good night.